The throne world of Xylaris shimmered under twin suns, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. Towering crystalline spires reached toward the heavens, each reflecting light in 1,000 directions. From her palace balcony, Queen Lyriel gazed across the city with eyes as sharp as her mind. She had ruled Xylaris for over a century, a long life for her species, long enough to see wars, betrayals, and fragile alliances. And now she faced a challenge unlike any other. A marriage arranged not for love, but for diplomacy. The human Elias Hart arrived aboard a small interstellar shuttle that hummed quietly as it touched down on the palace landing dock. To Lyriel, humans were an interesting species, fragile in appearance but surprisingly adaptive. They were clever, yes, but she had never met one capable of commanding respect among the galaxy's elite. And yet this human was sent not as a diplomat, but as a bridegroom. Elias stepped out of the shuttle. He was tall, with broad shoulders that hinted at strength but nothing extraordinary, at least not by Xylarian standards. His hair was dark, slightly tousled, and his eyes held a calm steadiness that made Lyriel pause. Most beings entering her court bowed nervously, afraid to meet her gaze. Elias did not bow, but neither did he show arrogance. He simply stood straight and confident, waiting. Lyriel had studied him from afar before this meeting. The records painted a picture of a skilled soldier and a man of strategy, but nothing remarkable compared to her alien peers. Her advisors insisted he was perfect for their alliance, a human who could be easily influenced and who would strengthen ties without challenging the throne. Lyriel, however, was not easily impressed. She had seen many who appeared ordinary at first, only to reveal dangerous cunning or incompetence at the wrong moment. The doors of the palace opened with a quiet hiss, and Lyriel descended, her silvery gown flowing like liquid starlight. Her attendants fell into a respectful hush. Humans had a habit of staring at her, uncomfortably distracted by her regal presence, but Elias did not. He met her gaze steadily. "Welcome to Xylaris, Captain Hart," Lyriel said, her voice soft but commanding. "I trust your journey was uneventful?" Elias inclined his head politely. "Thank you, Your Majesty. The journey was smooth." "Your world is remarkable." His eyes scanned the city beyond, taking in the spires and the twin suns. "It is unlike anything I have ever seen." Lyriel allowed a faint smile. Most visitors would have gawked or stammered, but Elias's reaction was measured. It suggested intelligence and self-control. "You are polite," she said. "I hope your respect for protocol continues. Xylaris is a world of order, and disorder is not tolerated lightly." "I understand, Your Majesty," he replied. His voice carried a warmth that was surprisingly human, but firm, steady, and confident. "I am here to honor my agreement. My duty is clear." Lyriel studied him carefully. He spoke with humility, yet there was a quiet strength behind his words. Still, outward appearances could be deceptive. Humans often surprised alien observers, sometimes with brilliance, sometimes with folly. She could not judge him by manners alone. The court assembled in the grand hall, a vast space filled with hovering lights and banners that shimmered with Xylaresian symbols. Lyriel's advisors whispered among themselves, impressed by Elias's calm demeanor. They had expected a nervous human, fidgeting under the eyes of alien royalty. Instead, he carried himself with a presence that, while ordinary to some, was quietly commanding. "Captain Hart," Lyriel said, motioning toward a central table, "I would like to show you our protocols for court life and discuss the terms of our arrangement." Elias followed her gracefully, matching her pace. He listened carefully as the Queen and her advisors explained traditions, expectations, and ceremonial duties. He asked questions that were direct but respectful, showing that he was not merely compliant but thoughtful. Lyriel felt a flicker of curiosity. There was more to this human than the surface revealed. During the evening, a formal dinner was held. Alien delicacies hovered in the air, glowing faintly, each dish infused with flavors that were almost impossible for humans to fully appreciate. Elias sampled them carefully, nodding in appreciation without showing discomfort. Lyriel noticed this small detail and found herself smiling inwardly. A human who could adapt to alien customs without complaint, rare indeed. Conversations flowed naturally, though careful. Lyriel asked questions about his home planet, Earth, and his life as a human soldier. Elias spoke plainly, with honesty and clarity, recounting battles he had faced and decisions he had made in high-pressure situations. He did not boast, yet his words revealed an intuitive understanding of strategy and leadership. Lyriel leaned back slightly in her chair, watching him. He seemed ordinary, yes, but perhaps too ordinary. There was something beneath the surface, something hidden. His steady composure, the way he noticed small details, the way he seemed to anticipate challenges before they arose, it all suggested a depth she could not yet fully measure. As the evening drew to a close, Lyriel escorted him to his quarters within the palace. They walked through corridors lit by gentle bioluminescence, the air humming softly with energy. For a moment silence fell between them. "You are not like most humans," Lyriel said finally. "I expected hesitation, uncertainty, and yet you carry yourself with confidence as if you have always belonged here." Elias smiled faintly. "Perhaps, Your Majesty, humans are capable of more than they are given credit for." Lyriel raised an eyebrow. His answer was diplomatic, but she sensed an underlying truth. She had underestimated him, not out of ignorance, but because humans were unpredictable. They had a way of defying expectations, of surprising those who assumed they could be measured by simple standards. "Sleep well, Captain Hart," Lyriel said, her voice softening slightly. "Tomorrow begins a new chapter. I hope your presence here proves beneficial to both our worlds." Elias inclined his head, his eyes reflecting determination. "I will do everything in my power, Your Majesty. I will not disappoint you." As Lyriel watched him enter his quarters, she felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. This human seemed ordinary, yet she could not shake the feeling that he held strength far beyond appearances. In the galaxy, appearances were often deceiving, but even with her experience, Lyriel could not predict the measure of his true abilities. That night, as the twin suns set and cast long shadows over Xylaris, the Queen returned to her private chambers. She stared out at the city once more, thoughtful. Diplomacy had brought humans into her life before, but none had ever entered so intimately, so closely tied to the fate of her empire. And this one was different. Somewhere deep within the human, she sensed something waiting, an untapped force that might change everything she knew about humans, power, and the galaxy itself. The stars above Xylaris twinkled like distant jewels, silent witnesses to the meeting of two worlds. One was ancient, regal, and disciplined. The other was human, seemingly ordinary, yet quietly capable of feats that would soon challenge everything the Queen had ever believed. The morning sun rose over Xylaris, casting pale golden light across the palace gardens. Queen Lyriel walked among the floating walkways, her mind restless. Ever since the arrival of the human Elias Hart, a quiet unease had settled in her thoughts. He seemed ordinary, respectful, composed, even charming. But there was something beneath the surface she could not yet measure. In the palace courtyard, attendants prepared for the day's formal ceremonies. Aliens of various species moved gracefully, some floating on anti-gravity platforms, others gliding on luminous walkways. Humans, in contrast, were clumsy in appearance, yet Elias moved with ease. It was subtle, no one else noticed, but Lyriel could see it. He adapted to the alien environment without hesitation, adjusting his movements to the shifting energy fields of the palace. "Your Majesty," Elias said, appearing quietly at her side. "I hope the morning finds you well." Lyriel nodded, intrigued by his calm presence. "It does, and you, Captain Hart? I trust your first night on Xylaris was comfortable." "More than comfortable," he replied with a small smile. "Your hospitality is exceptional." Lyriel studied him carefully. There was no arrogance in his tone, only a quiet confidence that felt natural. It was strange for her, having someone so close to her life who did not bow, fawn, or attempt to impress with flattery. Most beings treated her with a mix of fear and awe. Elias treated her with respect, but not fear. The Queen led him to a private study where reports of the Empire's affairs were displayed as holographic panels. Aliens crowded around complex data, analyzing trade routes, military reports, and planetary alliances. Lyriel watched Elias as he scanned the information. "What do you make of this human?" whispered one advisor. Lyriel raised an eyebrow but did not answer. She had noticed the same thing they had, his understanding of patterns, his insight into political tensions, but she wanted to see it firsthand. "Interesting," Elias murmured, tracing patterns across the holographic charts. "The neighboring system is experiencing subtle unrest. If left unchecked, it could escalate within the next 2 cycles." A small intervention now could prevent a larger conflict later. Lyriel blinked. Most Xylarian advisors spent years analyzing such reports and still missed these nuances. Elias saw them immediately. "You think you can manage that?" she asked, her tone neutral. "I can suggest a solution," he replied calmly. "It requires minimal force and maximum diplomacy. I believe it will succeed." The Queen leaned back, silently impressed. Not only did the human notice the unrest, but he also proposed a strategy that balanced caution with action. It was rare for a being to combine intellect with prudence in this way. Over the next several days, subtle hints of Elias's true capabilities began to emerge. He helped organize a diplomatic banquet, noticing potential points of tension between visiting dignitaries and resolving them before they escalated. When a technical malfunction disrupted the palace's energy flow, he adapted to alien technology with ease, rerouting systems and preventing a crisis. Lyriel observed silently. She could not explain it, but the human's competence was unsettling. He was ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in action. One afternoon, the palace received word of a minor skirmish at the outskirts of the Xylarian capital. A rogue band of mercenaries had infiltrated a nearby trade station, threatening civilians. Lyriel's first instinct was to dispatch elite soldiers immediately. Yet Elias spoke before she could give orders. "Allow me to assess the situation," he said. "I can neutralize the threat without unnecessary bloodshed." Lyriel hesitated. To trust a human in a tactical situation was unusual, even risky, yet she allowed it. Elias moved quickly, coordinating with local defenders while improvising clever strategies. Using knowledge of human combat tactics combined with careful observation of alien systems, he outmaneuvered the mercenaries. Within hours, the threat was neutralized and no innocent lives were lost. When he returned, Lyriel met him at the palace gates. "You act as if such things are simple," she said, her tone mixing admiration and incredulity. "They are only simple if approached logically," Elias replied. "Panic and hesitation cause failure. Observation and careful planning prevent it." Lyriel studied him. His words were not arrogant, yet they carried undeniable authority. She realized that humans, in their simplicity, often thought differently than advanced aliens. Their resourcefulness came from necessity, from surviving against odds that more advanced species might never face. Elias embodied this human trait fully. In the days that followed, Lyriel began inviting him to strategic meetings, partly to test him, partly to understand the depth of his abilities. He suggested reforms to the Empire's trade policies, improved security measures, and even ways to negotiate disputes with alien species more effectively. Every suggestion was practical, grounded in logic, and often more effective than the proposals of her seasoned advisors. One evening, as they walked along a terrace overlooking the city, Lyriel finally spoke her mind. "Captain Hart, I must admit, I am unsure what to make of you. You appear ordinary, yet your actions suggest otherwise. Are you truly human or something more?" Elias chuckled softly, a warm sound that carried easily in the cool evening air. "I am human, Your Majesty, but humans are capable of more than most beings realize. We survive in ways that are not always obvious. Strength is not only in power or speed, it is in observation, in patience, in the will to act when others hesitate." Lyriel considered this carefully. It was true. Humans had a reputation across the galaxy for unexpected resilience, yet few demonstrated it at this level. She felt a mix of intrigue and unease. If he truly was as capable as he appeared, her assumptions about him, and perhaps about humanity itself, might be wrong. The next week brought a social event unlike any other in Xylaris. Leaders from nearby systems gathered for a festival celebrating interstellar cooperation. Aliens displayed their technology, artistry, and diplomacy. Humans were a rarity in such gatherings, often seen as simple or primitive. Yet Elias navigated the event effortlessly. He conversed with alien dignitaries, diffused tensions, and even impressed skeptical elders with his knowledge of galactic history. Lyriel watched him from across the hall, her earlier doubts transforming into cautious respect. He remained humble, never showing off, never seeking attention, but his competence drew admiration from everyone around him. Even her advisors began to see it, whispering among themselves about the human's unexpected skill. Later that night, Lyriel confronted him privately. "You are unlike any human I have known or studied," she said. Do you realize the effect you are having here? Elias's expression was calm, thoughtful. I am only doing what I can to help, Your Majesty. I do not seek recognition, only results. If that happens to impress others, it is a consequence, not a goal. She regarded him for a long moment, realizing that his strength lay not only in action, but in character. He combined intelligence, adaptability, and humility, a combination rare even among her people, and she felt a stirring of respect, tinged with something she had not expected, curiosity, even admiration. The days turned into weeks, and subtle hints of Elias's abilities continued to surface. He could read alien expressions, anticipate political maneuvers, and solve problems that had puzzled even the most experienced advisors. Yet he remained ordinary in appearance, blending into the palace with quiet confidence. Lyriel could not ignore it. She had thought she understood humans, but Elias challenged her assumptions. He represented a kind of strength she had never truly encountered, a strength that was not flashy, not overt, but undeniable in effect. And she began to wonder, if this human had such abilities now, what might he be capable of when the stakes were even higher? The first signs of change were subtle, advisors speaking of him with newfound respect, minor disputes resolved with ease, and Lyriel herself questioning the limits of her understanding. Yet the galaxy had a way of testing even the most capable leaders. Lyriel did not yet know it, but a storm was gathering at the edges of her empire. Forces that threatened Xylaris would soon arrive, testing her reign, her people, and the human she had underestimated. And when that day came, Elias' heart would reveal abilities far beyond what anyone could imagine. For now the palace hummed with quiet order. Humans and aliens mingled, unaware of the larger challenges looming beyond the stars. And in the heart of it all, Lyriel began to recognize a simple truth. Strength does not always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers quietly, waiting for the right moment to shine. Elias' heart's moment was approaching, and when it came, the galaxy would remember that humans were capable of extraordinary feats, far beyond what appearances suggested. The peace of Xylaris did not last. Though the palace sparkled under the twin suns, shadows began to gather beyond the planetary orbit. Reports arrived daily of unusual activity at the edges of the system. Small skirmishes, missing cargo ships, and sudden disappearances. Lyriel studied these reports with growing concern, but her advisors insisted that it was minor, merely the normal chaos of interstellar trade. Yet Elias' heart saw differently. He had spent years reading patterns, observing behavior, and predicting outcomes under pressure. The irregularities were no accident. They indicated preparation for a larger strike. When he reviewed the latest data, he identified the signs clearly. The hostile alien coalition, long-thought content with distant conquests, was moving against Xylaris. Lyriel met with Elias in her strategy chamber, a circular room filled with holographic maps and data streams. "You are certain?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Absolutely," he replied, pointing to clusters of intercepted communications and ship movements. "They are testing defenses, probing weaknesses. If we do not act soon, they will strike the capital directly." Her advisors were uneasy. "This is impossible," one protested. "They would never attack the heart of our empire without warning." Elias shook his head. "That is exactly why they are doing it. They assume your people will wait for formal declarations, and in that time they will gain an advantage. But we can counter them. If we act smartly, we can protect the city without full-scale destruction." Lyriel considered his words carefully. Trusting him would require going against centuries of protocol, against the advice of her most experienced commanders. Yet something in his calm, precise manner inspired confidence. She nodded. "Very well, Captain Hart, you will lead a reconnaissance mission. Observe the enemy and report back. But remember, Xylaris is your responsibility. Do not fail us," Elias bowed slightly. "I will not fail, Your Majesty." Within hours, he was aboard a sleek reconnaissance vessel, blending human ingenuity with Xylarian technology. As the ship glided silently through space, Elias studied the enemy fleet. Unlike Xylarian ships, which relied on advanced energy shields and superior firepower, the Coalition's vessels moved unpredictably, using unconventional formations and erratic maneuvers. Many Xylarian commanders would have panicked, unsure how to respond. Elias smiled faintly. Humans thrived in unpredictability. Where others saw chaos, he saw opportunity. Using careful observation, he noted weak points in the enemy formation, ships isolated from the main group, gaps in communication, and over-reliance on predictable tactics. Back on Xylaris, Lyriel paced nervously in the council chamber. Every hour without word from Elias felt like a test of patience. She knew humans were resilient, but she had never relied on one to protect her capital against such overwhelming odds. Finally, a transmission arrived. Elias's voice was calm, almost casual. Your Majesty, the enemy's fleet is larger than expected, but not invincible. I have devised a plan. If you allow me, we can turn their strength into their weakness. Lyriel's advisors exchanged worried glances. This is madness, one said. The human cannot possibly lead against an armada this size. Lyriel raised a hand. Enough. Captain Hart has already proven his skill. We will listen. Elias outlined his plan with clarity and precision. He would split the enemy's forces by creating distractions with smaller ships, lure key vessels into traps, and disable their flagship with minimal casualties. His strategy combined Xylarian technology with human unpredictability, a hybrid approach that no alien commander had ever attempted. Lyriel's heart raced. If he succeeded, it would be extraordinary. If he failed, the capital could fall. Yet she saw in his plan a logic that even her seasoned generals could not match. Do it, she said finally, and may your skills protect Xylaris. The following hours were tense. Aliens and humans worked together under Elias's direction. He coordinated attacks from hidden positions, used clever diversions, and anticipated enemy maneuvers before they occurred. Small Xylarian ships darted in unexpected patterns, creating confusion among the coalition forces. Lyriel watched from the palace observation deck as the battle unfolded. Her initial skepticism gave way to awe. Elias moved like a master strategist, directing ships with precision and adapting to enemy reactions instantly. When one of the coalition's vessels broke formation and aimed at the palace, he redirected a squadron to intercept it, neutralizing the threat without harm to civilians. The enemy flagship loomed, enormous and menacing. It fired massive energy blasts, capable of leveling entire districts. Yet Elias had anticipated this. Using captured energy channels and a clever network of decoys, he funneled the flagship's attacks into empty space, leaving the city unharmed. Lyriel's advisors were stunned. He is extraordinary, one whispered. We never imagined a human capable of this. But Elias remained focused, never allowing himself to be distracted by praise or fear. His mind worked like a machine, constantly calculating, predicting, and acting. Every move he made saved lives, protected infrastructure, and weakened the enemy's confidence. Finally, the moment came to strike the enemy flagship directly. Elias coordinated a synchronized assault using the smallest, fastest ships in the fleet. They targeted the flagship's core systems with precision strikes while maintaining constant evasive maneuvers. The flagship, overconfident and confused, could not respond effectively. Lyriel's eyes widened as the massive vessel erupted in controlled detonations, disabled rather than destroyed. The enemy fleet, demoralized, began retreating in disarray. Xylaris had survived and the city was unharmed. When Elias returned to the palace, he did so not as a soldier, but as a hero. Lyriel met him at the gates, her heart pounding with relief and admiration. You saved Xylaris, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias shrugged modestly. We saved it together, Your Majesty. I only guided the strategy. Lyriel studied him, her respect growing deeper by the moment. This human, whom she had once thought ordinary, had shown not just skill and intelligence, but courage, decisiveness, and an unyielding will. He had acted calmly under pressure, outthinking an enemy far larger and more advanced than he was. Her advisors bowed deeply, acknowledging his brilliance, yet Elias remained humble. He spoke only to instruct and ensure the city's safety. Lyriel realized that his strength was not only physical or tactical, it was moral. He acted not for glory, but for duty and the protection of life. That evening, Lyriel and Elias stood together in the palace gardens, overlooking the city as it celebrated its survival. Fires of victory illuminated the towers, and citizens cheered for the humans and aliens who had defended their home. Lyriel felt a sense of pride and wonder she had never known. "You are no ordinary human," she said quietly. "I see now that your strength is more than skill or strategy. It is determination, courage, and wisdom." Elias smiled, a small but genuine expression. "I am human, Your Majesty. But humans have a way of surviving, even when the odds are impossible. We adapt, we fight, and we endure. That is all any being can do." Lyriel looked at him with new understanding. He had exceeded her expectations in every way. The human she had underestimated was now the one who had saved her world, and she knew that the galaxy would not see the last of his extraordinary abilities. The battle was over, but the implications of Elias's strength were only beginning. Aliens across Xylaris whispered of his brilliance. Some feared it. Some admired it. Lyriel, however, felt a growing sense of partnership, a realization that she could trust him with more than just strategy. She could trust him with her people, her empire, and perhaps even her heart. In the quiet after the battle, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Lyriel finally allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had married a human, believing him ordinary, unaware of the hidden potential within him. Now she understood that appearances could be deceiving, and that sometimes the quietest strength was the most powerful of all. And somewhere deep in the stars beyond Xylaris, the remnants of the enemy fleet regrouped. Unaware that the human they had underestimated would become the galaxy's greatest obstacle, Elias Hart had shown his true strength, not through force alone but through strategy, courage, and the unyielding grit that defined humanity. The Queen's eyes glimmered with a mixture of relief and admiration. The human beside her was no longer just a husband in title. He was a protector, a tactician, and a reminder that even in a galaxy of advanced civilizations, humans could rise above the rest. The story of Xylaris' survival would be told for generations, not just of alien power but of human courage, a quiet, unstoppable force that could change the fate of worlds. The victory over the first wave of the enemy fleet had brought temporary relief to Xylaris, but Elias Hart knew that the real challenge was yet to come. The alien coalition was formidable, their flagship a monstrous vessel of war, bristling with weapons and advanced technology. The first skirmish had been a test, an attempt to gauge Xylaris' defenses. Now, the enemy would come with full force, aiming to break the heart of the Empire itself. Lyriel convened an emergency council in the palace's grand strategy chamber. Alien generals and diplomats crowded the room, their expressions tense. The holographic map of the galaxy flickered with red markers, showing the enemy's rapid approach. The human captain stood beside her, calm and composed, scanning the projections with focused intensity. "The flagship is unlike anything we have faced," one of the generals warned. "It carries energy weapons that can destroy entire districts in minutes. Our forces may not be enough to stop it." Elias studied the map carefully, noting patterns the others had missed. "Your Majesty, we do not need to match their strength with strength. We need to outthink them. Their power is overwhelming, yes, but it is predictable. They rely on force to intimidate. We will use strategy, speed, and precision to neutralize them." Lyriel's brow furrowed. "Explain." Elias outlined his plan with clarity and authority. Small Xylarian ships would create diversions, drawing the flagship's weapons away from the city. Human-made drones would infiltrate the enemy's defenses, gathering critical intelligence and sabotaging their systems. And he himself would lead a specialized strike team to the heart of the flagship, disabling its core without destroying it, turning its greatest strength into a weakness. The room fell silent. The plan was audacious, almost reckless. Alien commanders were hesitant, unused to such unconventional tactics. But Lyriel trusted Elias. She had seen his intellect, his adaptability, and his courage, and she knew that he would not ask them to attempt anything impossible. "Very well," she said, her voice steady. "Captain Hart, you have the authority to command our forces. Protect Xylaris, and may your strategy succeed." Elias nodded, his eyes reflecting determination. "It will, Your Majesty. I will not fail." As the fleet mobilized, Xylaris' citizens watched from the skies and towers. The twin suns cast long shadows across the city as the alien armada approached, massive and menacing. Yet there was a calm in Elias that inspired confidence. Even the most skeptical generals felt it. He moved among them, issuing instructions with precision, adapting to every change, anticipating every move of the enemy. The first wave of engagement was chaotic. Enemy ships fired devastating energy blasts, attempting to break the defensive lines. Small Xylarian vessels darted like swallows, drawing fire and creating openings. Elias directed every maneuver, predicting the enemy's responses with uncanny accuracy. When a squadron faltered, he adjusted instantly, sending reinforcements and rerouting firepower to cover weaknesses. Lyriel watched from the palace observation deck, her heart pounding. The city below was a storm of light and sound, yet Elias's presence brought order to the chaos. He did not panic, did not hesitate. Every decision was deliberate, every action precise. Then came the moment she had feared most. The flagship moved directly toward the palace, its massive weapons charging. The energy beams could obliterate entire districts in seconds. Alien commanders shouted, attempting to coordinate defenses, but the flagship was relentless. Elias moved decisively. Using a fleet of the fastest Xylarian ships, he created a series of feints and diversions, drawing the flagship's attention away from the city. At the same time, he piloted a specialized strike craft with a small team directly toward the heart of the enemy vessel. Lyriel's breath caught as she watched him approach the massive ship. Every movement was calculated, yet the risk was enormous. The flagship's defenses were designed to repel intruders, and any mistake could be fatal. Inside the flagship, Elias and his team navigated corridors filled with alien technology and automated defenses. Energy turrets scanned for intruders, but Elias's calm and focus allowed them to move unnoticed. He anticipated patterns, avoided detection, and led his team to the core systems. "Keep moving," he whispered. "Timing is everything. One mistake and we fail." The team worked with precision, planting charges and hacking into the control systems. Elias himself interfaced directly with the alien technology, using a combination of human intuition and improvised techniques to bypass security protocols. The enemy, confident in their superiority, never expected a human to manipulate their systems with such skill. Back outside, the flagship unleashed devastating firepower, yet the diversions worked perfectly. The city remained safe, shielded by the smallest yet most crucial maneuvers of the human captain. Finally, the charges were set, the systems hacked. Elias activated the override, and the flagship shuddered violently as its core was neutralized. The massive vessel, once a symbol of terror, was now crippled, unable to continue its assault. The remaining enemy ships, demoralized and confused, retreated in disarray. Lyriel stood in awe. She had witnessed strategy and courage in action, but what Elias had accomplished surpassed her imagination. He had not only protected the city, but had done so with ingenuity and skill that no Xylarian commander could match. When Elias returned to Xylaris, the city erupted in celebration. Citizens cheered, aliens and humans alike recognizing the brilliance of the human who had saved them. Lyriel met him at the palace gates, her voice trembling with admiration. "You are extraordinary," she said, her eyes shining. "I underestimated you and I was wrong. You have shown strength, courage, and wisdom beyond anything I imagined." Elias smiled modestly. "I only did what was necessary, Your Majesty. The lives of your people were at stake. That is all any of us should care about." Lyriel regarded him in silence. The human beside her, whom she had once thought ordinary, had revealed the full measure of his abilities. He had outthought, outmaneuvered, and outperformed even the most advanced alien minds. His strength was not just physical, it was mental, strategic, and moral. The palace advisors bowed deeply, acknowledging his brilliance, yet Elias remained humble. He did not seek glory, only the success of the mission. Lyriel realized that this humility, combined with his skill, made him even more remarkable. That night, the city of Xylaris celebrated not just the survival of their empire, but the human who had ensured it. Fireworks illuminated the sky, ships of all kinds performing synchronized displays, yet Lyriel found herself thinking only of Elias. He had changed everything. The perception of humans, the understanding of strength, and her own assumptions about leadership and courage. As the celebrations continued, Lyriel took Elias to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. "Today you revealed your true strength," she said softly. "Not just in battle, but in character. I see now that humans are capable of greatness in ways even we cannot imagine." Elias looked out at the city, calm and thoughtful. "Strength is not about power alone," he said. "It is about making the right choices, protecting those who cannot protect themselves and facing impossible odds without giving up. That is what humanity can offer. Lyriel nodded, understanding fully for the first time. This human, this man she had married thinking him ordinary, had proven that courage, intelligence, and moral strength could surpass even the most advanced alien technology. The twin suns set behind them, casting long shadows over the city. The stars above Xylaris sparkled like distant jewels, silent witnesses to the human who had changed the fate of an empire. Lyriel realized that she could trust him not just with strategy, but with her people, her empire, and perhaps even her heart. The story of this battle would be remembered for generations, not only for the survival of Xylaris, but for the revelation that a single human, with courage and intelligence, could defy expectations and alter the course of history. The aftermath of the battle left Xylaris in a state of cautious relief. The alien coalition had retreated, their flagship crippled, leaving the city and its people unharmed. Citizens poured into the streets celebrating their survival and the brilliance of the human who had saved them. Fireworks danced across the twin suns, reflecting off the crystalline towers, while music and laughter echoed throughout the city. Yet Queen Lyriel knew that the true work was not over. Elias' heart moved quietly among the celebration, assisting wherever needed. He coordinated relief efforts, ensured that civilians were safe, and checked the security of critical infrastructure. Despite being lauded as a hero, he remained humble, focused on the people rather than the accolades. Lyriel watched him from a balcony, her admiration deepening. It was not just his skill in battle that impressed her, but the humanity he showed even in victory. The next morning, Lyriel convened a council to discuss the rebuilding and future defense of Xylaris. Aliens from various factions, including those once skeptical of humans, sat quietly as Elias presented strategies to strengthen the city's defenses, improve trade security, and prevent future attacks. His plans combined human ingenuity with Xylarian technology, blending adaptability, logic, and foresight. "This is remarkable," one advisor whispered to another. "A human leading our defense strategy, and doing it better than our own generals." Lyriel smiled quietly, proud but not surprised. She had seen his abilities firsthand. What impressed her most was the subtle confidence with which he operated, calm, precise, and unwavering. Humans, she realized, were capable of more than she had ever imagined. When the council ended, Lyriel approached Elias privately. "You have changed the perception of your species here," she said. "Not just among my people, but among all who witnessed your actions. I underestimated you and I was wrong." Elias bowed slightly, his expression modest. "I did what I had to, Your Majesty." The strength of a leader is not measured by glory, but by the lives they protect. Lyriel nodded, her eyes reflecting respect and something more, a recognition of his wisdom, courage, and integrity. "I see now that humans possess a kind of strength we often overlook. Strength of will, courage, and determination. I am honored to have you by my side." Elias's expression softened. "And I am honored to serve alongside you, Your Majesty. Together we can ensure that Xylaris remains safe and prosperous." In the following weeks, life on Xylaris began to return to normal. Trade resumed, citizens rebuilt, and festivals celebrated not only the city's survival but the unity of its people. Lyriel and Elias worked closely, their partnership growing stronger. He adapted quickly to life in the palace, blending human pragmatism with respect for Xylarian customs. His presence inspired others, humans and aliens alike, to act with courage, initiative, and cooperation. One day, Lyriel and Elias walked together through the palace gardens, now lush with flowers that glowed softly under the twin suns. The atmosphere was peaceful, yet there was an unspoken understanding between them. Challenges would come again, but they would face them together. "You have taught me something invaluable," Lyriel said, breaking the silence. "That strength is not always visible. Sometimes it is quiet, patient, and thoughtful. Humans embody that in ways I had never understood." Elias smiled. "And I have learned that leadership is not just about power. It is about responsibility, trust, and making choices that benefit the many, not the few." "You have shown me that, Your Majesty." Their conversation was interrupted by a delegation from a neighboring system, bringing word of trade agreements and requests for alliance. Elias advised on negotiations using logic, empathy, and strategic thinking to reach agreements that satisfied all parties. Lyriel observed how naturally he handled complex situations, how his calm reasoning diffused tensions, and how his human intuition often predicted outcomes that alien experience could not. As days passed, the people of Xylaris came to see Elias as more than a human outsider. He became a symbol of unity, a bridge between species, and a living example of what courage and intelligence could achieve. Citizens whispered of the human who had saved their city, but Elias never sought fame or recognition. He acted because it was right, not because it earned him praise. Lyriel felt a deep sense of trust in him, not just as a husband or advisor, but as a partner in leadership. Together they guided Xylaris through reforms that strengthened alliances, improved defenses, and encouraged cooperation between species. The Empire grew more resilient, not because of its technology alone, but because of the unity and courage that Elias had inspired. One evening, as the twin suns set, Lyriel and Elias stood on the palace balcony overlooking the city. Lights shimmered across the crystalline towers, citizens moving through the streets in quiet celebration. The events of the past weeks weighed heavily on her mind, but she felt a sense of peace knowing that the city was secure and that Elias's strength would continue to protect it. "You have changed more than just Xylaris," Lyriel said softly. "You have changed me and perhaps the galaxy's perception of humanity." Elias's gaze was steady, thoughtful. "I only did what humans do best, adapt, endure, and act when necessary. But I am glad it has made a difference." Lyriel smiled, feeling a bond stronger than she had ever imagined. The human she once thought ordinary had revealed his true strength, not through force alone but through intelligence, courage, and moral clarity. She realized that this partnership, built on trust and respect, was the true power that would guide Xylaris into the future. In the days that followed, Xylaris entered an era of growth and prosperity. The lessons learned from the battle against the coalition shaped military strategy, trade policies, and diplomacy for generations. Citizens remembered the bravery of the human who had protected their home and inspired unity among the Empire's diverse species. Schools and academies studied his strategies, and leaders sought to emulate his calm, thoughtful approach to problem-solving. Lyriel and Elias continued their work together, facing new challenges with confidence. The galaxy remained unpredictable, filled with dangers and opportunities alike, but they had learned that courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the greatest odds. One quiet evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lyriel turned to Elias. "I once thought I knew what strength meant," she said. "But you have shown me that it is not always visible, and that the quietest courage can be the most powerful." Elias took her hand gently. "And I have learned that strength is not just individual, it is shared. Together we can face whatever comes next." Lyriel nodded, feeling a profound sense of unity and hope. The human she had married, the one she once underestimated, had revealed his true self, and in doing so, he had not only saved her empire but had shown the galaxy that humanity's courage and intelligence were forces to be reckoned with. The twin suns set over Xylaris, casting warm light across the palace and city below. Stars shimmered in the distance, silent witnesses to a partnership that would shape the fate of worlds. Humans and aliens alike would remember this story, not just as a tale of survival, but as a testament to the power of courage, intelligence, and mutual respect. Lyriel and Elias stood together side by side, ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy might present. The story of the human who had defied expectations and changed the fate of an empire would echo across generations, a reminder that true strength is not measured by appearances, but by actions, choices, and character.